And what we're going to do is we're going to do the adding and subtracting of radicals. And then after that, we'll move on to equations. So what if you have equations that also have radical signs in them? So to add or subtract radicals, let's just start with some basic facts here. And we already know the number under the radical is called the radicand. Okay, we already know that. When you're adding and subtracting radicals, you can only add or subtract if they have the same radicand. Okay, so notice that the radicands here are 6, and that number under the radical is not going to change if it's already simplified. So we can't break down 6 into any type of factors that are perfect squares, so it is in simplest form. Once you determine it's in simplest form, then you can add or subtract the outside numbers. So these numbers right here. Okay, so these are your outside numbers. And so basically it's saying I have 3 rad 6s. I'm going to subtract 2 rad 6. So how many rad 6 do I have left? 1 rad 6. And really, again, we don't ever write that number 1. So we'll just say rad 6. You don't need to say 1 rad 6. So 3 minus 2 is 1. The 6, again, is in simplest form. It stays there. You only add or subtract the outside numbers. Now, looking at number 2, this is not in simplest form. Okay, 20 has a perfect square in it of 4. 45 has a perfect square in it of 9. So they're not in simplest form. So first we got to break down this 20 to 4 times 5 and break down the 45 to 9 times 5. Okay. And again, you can do this on your calculator, but these are, very basic numbers. You should be able to find a factor that's a perfect square. You take out the perfect square. So the square root of 4 is 2. So I'm going to take that on the outside. So I have 2 rad 5. Then I'm going to do the other term, take the square root of 9 out, which is 3. So I'll have 3 rad 5s. So now I'm going to add 2 plus 3. So that'll give me 5 rad 5. That's your final answer. So since you already know how to simplify the radicand, this is actually pretty easy. Because once you have that in simplest form, it's just a matter of adding or subtracting those outside numbers. So let's do number 3. So what are some factors of 54 where one number is a perfect square? 9 times 6. Okay, so we can break down the 54 to 9 times 6. Okay, put down our minus sign, put down the 3. And then how can we break down 24, 4 times 6? So again, you're looking for perfect squares of 24. Okay, or you can just put it on a calculator and look for 4 and 6. Okay, so now we're going to take out the square root of 9. The square root of 9 is 3. So that goes on the outside. Don't forget that negative was still there. So that's going to be negative 3 rad 6. Take the square root of 4 out, which is what? 2. But there's a 3 on the outside. So what do I do with those? Multiply. So that'll give me 6 rad 6. Okay. So now I have negative 3 minus 6. That gives me a total of negative 9 rad 6. Now, there will be some cases where the radicals are not the same. So I want you to see what that's going to look like. And if it's not the same, and I'll show you in a minute. So we'll take a second to do that. All right, let's go ahead and do number 4. So in number 4, I'm going to break down the 45 to 9 times 5. And this is the second term is already in simplest form. You can't break down that 5 anymore. So now I'm going to take the square root of 9 out, which is 3, multiplied by the negative 3 that's there. So that's going to give me negative 9 rad 5 minus 3 rad 5. So my answer is negative what? Negative 12 rad 5. Okay, you just do negative 9 minus 3. So again, you're only handling the outside numbers once you have it as simple as 4. So let me give you one where it may not come out, where both numbers have the same radicand. So I'm going to just say this is 4a. I'll put it in here. And let's say we had rad 18 minus 2 rad 24. Okay, so let's say we had something like that. All right. So what's the factor of 18 that has a perfect square in it? 9. Okay, so we're going to say 9 times 2. And then this will be 4 times 6. All right. So when I take out the square root of 9, that's going to give me 3 rad 2 minus, take the square root of 4 out, which is 2, multiplied by the 2 that's there, 4 rad 6. So you can tell the radicands are not alike. So that's your final answer. You have 3 rad 2 minus 4 rad 6. You cannot simplify that any further. And then sometimes you might have the case where you can simplify 2 and not the other. Again, that will be your final answer. Okay. All right, let's move to the next page. So the next page, we're doing the bottom half, starting with question number 15. Okay. So for these types of problems where you see there's a radical in the problem, you have to undo that radical. But before you undo it, you know how if it's a plus sign, we subtract from both sides. We always use the opposite operation. So how do you think you undo a square root? What do you think what's the opposite of taking a square root? Squaring. Okay, so that's how that's going to disappear, by squaring it. All right, so what you want to do here when you're solving these types of equations, okay, and let me just start a different file for this. So I'm going to cut this off and then I'll restart it with the next one because I want to have 2 separate lessons. Okay,